Uncle Don and Aunt Mary Gay, this has been a long time coming. Thank you for all you did for your Richard, my father, Annie's father, while he lived with what we now call bipolar disorder. At a time when mental illness was not understood and when those living with mental illness were expected to remain in the shadows and remain in the margins of life, you helped Rich know that he was loved and valued, that he belonged, and that he deserved to be free of suffering. You continue to be real pioneers in the effort to welcome into the light of our shared humanity all who live with mental illness. You are doing what you do best, which is good work and God's work. We are eternally grateful.
Hi, Aunt Mary Gay and Uncle Don. Thank you so much for all you're doing for this cause. It's so important to me that you are sharing my father's story for such a positive purpose. It keeps the dialogue open around mental health and allows us to keep things moving forward to get the services that people with mental illness need. Your generosity knows no bounds, and you two are a blessing to this world. We are so very lucky to have you. I love you.
I think one of the things that my father felt like was really important about telling this story and about people understanding that he has always been a caregiver and has always sought to solve problems and to help people be the best person they can be. And as we started talking about my new role at Sanctuary House and helping try to create more public awareness of what we do at Sanctuary House, Dad started realizing that he might be able to give people familiarity in the ability to tell someone that they've had a family member who has been diagnosed or has been dealt the hand of an illness that affects the brain. And it was really important that Dad tell this story now because it is so important to make sure that people feel comfortable.
My brother had graduated from Rochester 5 years ahead of me in the major of physics. He had an opportunity to present to the National Photographic Conference at West Point. And he and the other scientists from his team drove down to West Point to present a paper. He'd gotten into a position in his lifestyle that he didn't think he needed to sleep. And he went down there and he was really wrapped up in doing this paper. On the way back from West Point on the New York Thruway, Richard had lost complete emotional control, and they finally had to call a state highway patrol. So they put him in a straitjacket and sedated him some and put him in an ambulance and brought him back to Rochester. I got a phone call from my father, and then it said that he's in the hospital. Donnie, will you take care of it? So I took care of it. My mother sort of refused, even though she was trained RN, she sort of refused to acknowledge that her son was sick. And I guess, you say the good things that come out of that. I learned how to take care of that, and now, soon to be 87, I still take care of the things. That's what you do in life. I went over to the hospital to find him, and two of the girls, one I went to high school, happened to be assigned to the 6th floor where my brother was in a psychiatric ward, and I had to go have them take me down to see my brother in a padded cell with a straitjacket. And one of the blessings that came out of it in reality was that the vice president of sales for all of Kodak was down the hall in a padded cell. He'd had a breakdown, and Richard, when he came out of it, and the therapy worked, and he was really stable enough to want to go back to work, and they wanted him to go back to work, he was proud of the fact that this vice president also had the same problem, because they pretty much had diagnosed that Rich had bipolar tendencies. Richard had an IQ of 160 and a photographic mind, so he was amazingly talented, but he had this affliction, I guess is what you'd call it, and so he had to deal with that.
Rich came to stay with us because he was really struggling in Rochester, needed to really be able to have that family support system, here. My mom was very willing to open her doors and even though she had 5 young children, let Rich live with us at that time. When he got here, my uncle was just this amazing man. He was like 6'4", and had by that point grown a very, very full beard. And so he was not only a large man with lots of expression and lots of energy and always telling us stories and always wanting to fill our heads with information, but he was sort of a powerful force when he came into a room. And so for me as a young child, I think I was about 6 or 7, somewhere in that age frame, all of a sudden having this new person in your house that didn't follow the family rules necessarily, didn't sleep, you know, and so you'd come downstairs and, you know, a normal time to find your parents, and he would be awake and sitting up and wanting you to sit down and have him tell you a story. And he was, you know, very gentle, but at times very overwhelming. So the memories are both good and emotional as well. It became very evident quickly that Rich's episodes of being very manic were going to be very difficult to manage. There were times where, you know, he would not sleep for a week, 2 weeks, and then he would really crash. My dad made the decision that Rich really needed to get some help that they couldn't give him, and so they were able to get him, with the help of doctors here, into the behavioral health center. Rich was able to get stable over that time frame and then was able to return back to Rochester.
Richard worked for a little while at Kodak, and then they let him go out on disability. And that was healthy. That was a healthy period of time for him. But then he started drinking. He hadn't been a drinker at all. But like a lot of bipolar people, they get very obsessive about it. And he just really lost. He was just not able to operate. And the state took him in and committed him to the hospital. And that's where he died, was in the state hospital. It was time for Richard to go to his maker and not be troubled anymore. You know, he'd been through a lot of angst, a lot of tough times, and he'd had a lot of good times.
I think there were times that my dad was worried about sending Rich back to Rochester when he did, because he knew that he wouldn't be able to be there to be his safety net the way he was here. But he also knew that Rich needed to live his life, and that was important too.
When you're addressing the issue of mental health, I think you have to address the issue that people have to talk about it, have to shout about it, because it hits all walks of life. I guess it's a lot like some of these other things out there. Who the hell knows who's going to have Alzheimer's, who isn't, right? It's the same thing. You don't know what mental health, who's going to get impacted, somebody directly in your family or not. Places like Sanctuary House have to have volunteers, and they have to have funds. You know, if you go away with anything tonight, think about how you can help raise funds, how you can get people to volunteer, and how you can help get people to get out and share their experiences, talk about it, and help solve it in any way that anybody feels comfortable trying to do. I think it's a good thing to focus on for the betterment of Greensboro, my adopted home.
I think both my parents, my mom and my dad, have always quietly stepped up to help the community, and I think it's really important to them that we make change and we let people start talking about the day-to-day, in and out, real challenge it is to have a family member with mental health issues.